Hey, what is up? It is the Follow Up Media Podcast. My name is Christian Lee. I'm sitting here with my co-host, Riley Alston.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me again.
No, always. We always have you, Riley.
Thank you.
Riley is our Vice President of Sales for Follow Up Media. A young buck, but moving his way up. You know, when I was your age, talk about a great position. Riley, as I look across the room in one of our studios, located at the Blend in Alpharetta, Georgia, how much potential there is for you. What are you, like 18?
22.
Oh, you're all right. You're old enough to drink. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, but what your life is potentially going to look like, by the time you're 25, 26 is going to be mind blowing compared to probably most of the kids that you went to school with.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Very
so,
exciting.
it is 2025. Last episode, we kind of talked about content, creating content, new initiatives, new year, new you, new year for your business, new goals that, businesses are setting aside along with budgets, what they're going to do different this year to get them a set of different results. And, definition of insanity, you've heard it a million times. I almost hate even saying it, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. You most likely will not get that result. And if you do get a different result, most of the time it is not moving in the direction that you would have wanted it to be. So you might be getting less of a result than you were getting the year before if you keep doing what you're doing. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
That goes for personal lives and that goes for businesses as well.
Yep.
So it's like, how can they position themselves? And one thing that we pointed out in our last episode was that, we like to touch, an established contact in a more personal way.
Yeah.
We like to pick up the phone or go into your office and introduce ourselves instead of creating an ad, hopefully resonating with a portion of the public and
Throwing out spam emails.
Throwing out spam emails. While I do like the ones where, I get where they're asking me for my information because my heir in Kuwait has died and left me a lot of money and I'm the sole beneficiary.
Yeah.
The beneficiary. I love those emails because
They're
the
fun.
grammar is never correct.
Yeah.
It's always jacked up in some way. Which I'm like, with AI, I'm like, you didn't run that like text through
Yeah.
like Chat GPT to make it sound like, oh, I can't even poke holes. It is an absurd story, but their grammar is perfect, so it might be real.
Yeah.
I would imagine their conversion rates on the idiots that actually, believe what they're doing there is no different than a legit email campaign,
Yeah.
right? They're casting a wide ass net and they're just waiting on one reply.
Yeah.
But when you go through millions and millions, maybe billions
We're
of
gonna have
people,
one idiot.
you're gonna, or no, you probably,
Or a
I would
couple idiots.
like to see the ROI
Yeah.
on those emails
Would be.
because I guarantee you would probably look at what their daily numbers are of the people that actually were like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like,
If you like
and actually start like a communication where if you get a reply, they're like, oh, we got one. They're probably all in a,
Right.
a
Local
cult center somewhere, like cheering and like, popping bottles. But I would like to see those numbers because I guarantee there are thousands. They'd probably have hundreds of people that might fall for it.
Mhm.
But if I could offer you one tidbit of advice to these scam artists that are casting these big fishing nets, trying to pull the dumb,
Honestly.
all right, that fall for these type things. There is something called AI now. There's many language models that you could use and just run your text through there, and it would probably increase your chances because no one would be initially flagged
Yeah.
by the poor grammar and punctuation that exists
It's like reading
in
a
those
book.
emails.
Perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah. That's
College students are using.
I'm not trying to increase their hack rate and their spam, and taking advantage of, but then again, well, you know what? I'll call it like I see it. If you're an idiot and you're dumb,
You might as well.
you're going to have to be a little more clever to get me to bite on that.
Right.
But there are some that, they prey on the old.
Very true.
But I guess someone at the very end of their life, like at the end of their business, cycle as well, or their business career before the retirement.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I guess but why would they care? Because, like, hey, I might not live for another 10 years. But I don't know. Anyway, we're not. So we talked about, those initiatives. Email marketing would be one of them. But we like to reach out and touch someone,
Right.
like, hey, person to person, voice to voice, and really try to establish contact with them to where they know our name, they know our company, and now we know them.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've already done a little bit of due diligence before we called, and we already know they're not creating content. They don't have any video. They're not posting good stuff on social. They're not establishing themselves as a thought leader in that industry or in that business lane they're in. They're not creating any other brand awareness, and they're not establishing themselves as a thought leader in that area of business.
And they may think they're doing good, but you don't know what you don't know.
It's one of those things where, and I know we've had these conversations in quite detail, Riley, where, you've reached out to somebody, you've pointed out, I see you're not creating any content, you're not really taking advantage of these social platforms. You might have a profile, but you're not posting anything. You have Old Faithful, that blog that you're paying some company to put together for you. And if I had to guess, it's probably maybe the SEO company that you're paying an astronomical amount of money for every month in hopes that they're doing their job and, putting in new keywords and search terms to where you're getting this, and hoping they're not just taking your $2,000 a month and just sitting back going, bring me another round,
right?
Which a lot of companies that we are consulting with, that we are dealing with, that we're onboarding, that seems to be a common denominator in their SEO website, kind of experience. And, we are, Follow Up Media is set out to change things. We are here to shake shit up. I'll be honest with you. So if you have been working with a marketing or a production company that you feel is just kind of in idle mode, you're kind of got that reoccurring payment, you're used to seeing it, the sting has come out of watching the money come out of your bank account. It's like a necessary evil, but you still don't understand the benefits of it.
Yeah.
We are here to change that because we are Follow Up Media and we are action focused. We are not about what we say. While we do talk a good talk, but we back it up with action.
For sure.
And that starts to become very clear in just how we reach out and how we interact. And we might leave you 10 messages, but you're not coming off our list.
No.
Until we at least have that conversation and feel out. This is, if you are at the end of I only have a few more years in this business, I'm going to retire and I'm going to go be with my wife or whatever you're going to do, go fishing every day. That's great. You might not care. Yeah. And, at that point, we might check you off the list as, we won't reach back out,
right?
Because we know where you're at. Mm-hmm. But until we hear that from you, we're not going to stop because there's a reason why we contacted you in the first place. It's not just a long list of unnamed, we have the names.
Yeah. When we look at the website.
But the thing is we might not have spoken with you yet, but we have already profiled your brand. We've already looked and said, okay, they are doing something. Are they doing it correct?
Yeah.
Do they know what they don't know? Or do they have somebody in a position that is dialed in to, the algorithms on all these social platforms, on YouTube, on, utilizing a podcast versus not utilizing a pod. So we've already kind of, okay, this one is worth reaching out to.
Right.
So if we reach out to you, you should almost take that as a compliment.
Yeah, right.
Because we think that your brand and your company has a lot more potential and is probably underperforming, and, some people this is what I was getting back to. Some people are like, oh, we built this great referral business. Well, that's great. Well, it's fantastic. That's what you want. Word of mouth is the best form of marketing.
Yeah.
But, and I hope that if you do have one of these businesses and you speak highly about it and people approach you for helping you with marketing, I don't need that. Because guess what? I built a business on doing what I say I'm going to do and performing for my clients. And we have a great word of mouth. Well, I hope it lives forever and I hope it never slows down. But a lot of times the reality is while you might have a good year, 2 years, 3 years of having this word of mouth, business is booming. What ends up happening for most, from my experience and in talking with other people and businesses about their journey, is all of a sudden it does start to slow down. And then this pipeline starts to turn more into a trickle. And they're like, oh, shit, we got to open back up the floodgates.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're kind of in crisis mode. And now you're trying to throw money at stuff and trying to ramp up. And now you're trying to adopt these initiatives.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, your competition has probably started to adopt. And which that doesn't mean you still can't make an impact.
Yeah.
But always having, the floodgates open is the best. And I think we've run into some customers too that are like, well, I just can't handle any more business.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. If you can't handle anymore, you don't want any more business. I don't really got anything to.
Yeah.
Okay, great. But there again, when that business and you're like, man, I need more business because now you can definitely handle what it just maybe some of them moved on.
Yeah.
So, that is the whole thing with, what we are doing is we are trying to set companies up for the future. Now, there are a lot of short-term benefits to what we do, and you can see ROI very quickly in some respects. And in other respects, it does take a little bit of time. I mean, but this is overall, while you will see the benefits and get the ROI, this is a long-term initiative that is going to set your company up for the future. So if you're in the beginnings of your career or your business, this is going to help you build something big and then sustain it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think really what we wanted to talk about, and I know I touched on a few things we spoke about in the last episode, but we're kind of expanding on, some of the objections. One thing we see also is there's a fear.
Yeah.
Like there is a fear because it's not comfortable to be on a mic.
No.
Now, there are a couple different scenarios that we have to look at when we are talking to a new client, whether it's podcast or it's a video series. Podcast these days is pretty much an audio and video component. Years ago, when you said the word podcast, everyone thought, oh, it's just audio.
Yeah.
Right. But now there's a video element most of the time. And while clients, if they wanted to, could opt into just the audio version. I mean, if you come into one of our studios, it's filming regardless, video. They're not used to it, right? They're not used to being on mic. They're not used to being in front of a camera. And it's not the most comfortable thing because, most people come in here and they're, up until we hit the studio doors, they're talking like they normally would. And then you put this mic in front of them.
Yeah.
And they're like in a world. And you're like, whoa, buddy, that's not how you talk.
Yeah.
Right. Like but they're gathering all the things they've seen and they think they have to project a different way.
Right.
And really the more conversational, the better, but that does not make it any easier. And so what we do is we have a number of ways we help. Riley is also one of our hosts. So if we have a company that is just not comfortable with leading the initiative or opening up the video or starting off the podcast, welcoming the audience, just kind of getting it moving.
Yeah.
As far as the content goes, Riley, depending on what industry you're in, will have a preset of questions and will lead to make our client look overall smooth and polished.
Yeah.
Because we can ask them the questions that we'll set them up so they can knock it out the park.
Yeah.
And then we can help them get the content they need that we are guiding them to showcase. Right?
Yeah.
And or we just script it for them roughly. I mean, no one's going to be able to look down and just follow a script. Otherwise, they're not going to be making any direct contact with the camera. You don't want their face buried in the sheet, and you don't want anybody reading anything verbatim either.
Yeah, but a lot of people, if they have topics, they can kind of, I mean, they're the expert in this field for a reason. They're the owner. If you give them the topics, they're going to be able to just ramble off, and all of a sudden you're 10 minutes down on this topic, and you're like, I didn't even have any bullet points on it. All I had was the topic name, and then I just ran with it.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
how
We're
it
not going to ask you questions that are out of your wheelhouse. If you're a financial advisor, you know, obviously we're going to ask questions that are pertinent and that appeal to, you know, their ideal client, that profile. You know, if you're talking to and about retirement, we are going to ask you questions that those people who are on the verge of retirement, or they see that coming in their view, like in the next year or two, there are many, many questions that, you know, I would say that we need to ask. So they could provide those answers that would educate those people that are now concerned about retirement. Now, Riley, I mentioned your age and called you out in the beginning of this. If I was, and we do have clients that are advisors, do you give a crap about retirement topics at this present moment?
Not the president.
No. So
Right.
So you're to somebody at your age, while you might know the benefits of, I'll put a 401k and make sure you're putting away money for retirement. At the end of the day, you could give a shit less, because in all honesty, if you get to live a full and fruitful life, you've got time on your side. And so at that point, most 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, I mean, at least 20-year-olds could give a shit less about the subject, right? You're probably not their demo.
For sure.
Especially when it comes to the retirement topic.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, we will not only script, we have the ability to host, we have the ability to schedule guests. We are the marketing arm. That's our goal, is to essentially become the marketing arm for these companies that do not have full-fledged marketing departments, right? We can do digital campaigns. We can buy you outdoor advertising. We can buy you, airtime on TV networks or radio stations or digital.
Yeah.
At the same time, we have the ability to actually get in there with our clients to help them create content. I have something very profound that I'm going to say, and I don't know if it's going to help those that might see this, that go, yeah, I'm just not that type of going personality where I'm going to get on a mic or be in front of the camera.
Yeah.
That's not me, right? Well, I'd ask, if I showed you and said, I'm going to get you these guaranteed results, and you were looking for a way to, a path to get to those results, and I said, this was your vehicle, a podcast, video. This is the most streamlined, quickest way from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Hands down, I guarantee these results. Would you go through the pains of overcoming your discomfort with the initiative? Or would it be, no, I'll take the long way, or I'll take the unguaranteed way?
Yeah.
And this is what I was going to say that's so profound. Nobody, and there might be some narcissists out there that you might know in your sphere of influence and in your personal lives that enjoy watching themselves and listening to themselves. And actually there are those few out there, but most people don't like watching themselves and don't like hearing themselves. And they're like, that is exactly why when you ask most A-list, like Grammy nominated actors and actresses, did you watch the movie you just made? They go, no,
Can't do it.
No, they don't. They don't watch the final product. Some do, objectively, but most find it very uncomfortable. And they end up doing what everyone else does. They're going to criticize their performance. Oh, God, I look like that? That's how I look?
Yeah.
That's how I sound? Like anything to not And you know what? You let Follow What Media do it. You don't even have to watch it.
Yeah.
But the way we see ourselves and the way everyone else does is not always the same. Sometimes people need to be a little more self-aware, to be honest with you, because they think people are seeing them one way and they are not seeing them that way, and they're seeing them completely different. But when it comes to appearance and sound, as long as you're not a scumbag, I mean, like, overall, it's not as bad as you
No.
judge yourself,
Mhm.
right? And it doesn't really matter because the content, being authentic and sharing your knowledge and your experience, and you're an expert. Otherwise, you wouldn't be successful in your business already, and we would not have reached out to you,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Mm.
We're not trying to onboard some losers.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not. We're trying to onboard top level executives and industry experts who are underperforming from what we can tell,
Mhm.
who need help on setting themselves up for the future.
Yeah.
And in content creation is the future.
Mm.
So it's like, get out of your own head and let us, or anybody, I mean, even if it's not us, you don't have to use us. And while I would love you to, and I think we should also point out too, it's like, you don't have to outsource creating video. I mean, you got video on your phone.
Mhm.
You could figure out in probably a Google search how to start your own podcast.
Yeah.
But here are a few pros and cons. I would say a pro is that you will go down this path and you will have to learn, and there's plenty of resources that will educate you, but it's its own damn thing. And so, okay, then you've got to, are you going to be a video editor and an audio editor? All right. Well, okay. So if you're a business, obviously you're a business owner, you probably want to spend time doing the things that make you money, right? Instead of trying to teach yourself new things, unless you've just always wanted to learn video editing or YouTube optimization, if
Yeah.
that's your thing. I don't know. Maybe that's a hobby for you. So you can go about figuring out how to do it yourself, or task someone that might work for you who's never done it. And your results are probably going to be minimal at best because there's a huge learning curve. Or one of my clients, whom I've been having a lot of conversations with, that is their goal, was to bring on a full-time social media manager. And at the time, we were managing their social profiles. We were posting their video content, some static posts. They did have somebody in their office that would send out, a few posts, a week or something about an event or about a product that they had just, put on the market to sell or whatever. And so I started raising the question, while not trying to hold on to this huge amount of monthly money, but I am an advisor. When you start working with us, I am going to offer insight to what we see. I mean, if we see something that it's like, okay, well, you can think about it like this, or you could look at it like that. I'm at least going to show you.
That's what's so important about our discovery call. When we talk to them, we get down to stuff that they don't know that they needed and stuff that they wanted but didn't know the right avenue to get there.
Exactly. Yeah. No, absolutely. And so it's like, okay, you could pay us 12 or $1,300 a month and we'll manage your social media, your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your TikTok, your Twitter. It's not Twitter, your X, your Threads, all these,
Get in touch
platforms.
with your ex.
Yeah, we'll get in touch with your ex. And that's going to cost you, X amount of dollars a month, depending on the level and how many platforms. I mean, it could be a $1,200 to $4,000 a month expense. But I mean, because social media management you've got to define that also, because is the company that's handling it, are they responding to every message on Facebook on your behalf? That's another level of engagement. That's not just posting something and then going, we're done,
Posted today, we're good.
Well, no, but then there are these companies that, okay, well, who's handling when somebody actually responds? Is that your team going to do that? Because if that's the level of social media management you need, there's obviously going to be a bigger cost.
Yeah.
But then you look at, okay, well, I'm going to hire somebody that's full time at 40 hours a week. probably for this one task. And we do have clients that have gone down this road where they try to find this unicorn, this SEO, website builder, social media manager, video editor, YouTube optimizer, somebody, this one person that is going to handle an entire department's worth of tasks. I mean, they are going to be expensive.
Yeah.
But, and I would probably advise, I doubt that they're going to be an expert in every one of them.
Yeah.
So, if you want somebody that knows a little bit about a lot, or somebody that knows a lot about that little,
Yeah.
because that is what is going to get you the best bang and ROI for that initiative, right?
Sure.
So if it's the way you post content, it's the way you title it, it's the way you describe it, it's the call to action that accompanies every piece of content that is put out. If depending on the platform, are they more hashtag friendly or are they not hashtag friendly? Obviously Instagram, you can throw up, 30 hashtags in there.
Yeah.
Facebook, you can use the same, but it's not gonna help you anymore.
Yeah.
I think they're like, at the last time I looked in 2024 at the end, it's like 5-6 hashtags is probably best practices to use on Facebook. And most people don't know this, but you know what? They don't need to know it because that's not what they're focused on. That is where, we say, bring in a company that can help execute this for you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go down the road and get minimal results because it can be an expensive experience either way.
Yeah.
You could hire in-house and then realize that this in-house person, they don't know as much as they should know. And you don't know what you don't know. I just want you to do action. Just show me you're working. But are they working right? Right? At least you have somebody to fall back on and yell at if it's not being done correctly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the price for, let's just say, the social media manager in-house, it's going to be 60 grand. You're going to offer them benefits. So now that employee is going to cost you $67,000 with insurance and taxes. So, $2,000 a month doesn't sound all that bad.
No, not really. For
a third of the price, you've got it being handled correctly.
Yeah.
Now, that's just not to say that just like hiring a new employee, there is an onboarding, period where it's, follow-up media is no different than any other, part of your company. We need to learn your brand, right? What are your brand guidelines? What compliance issues do we need to ensure that get posted or, applied to every piece of content you put out? Because if you're in real estate or you're in finance, there's a hell of a lot of compliance. The SEC I feel like they have not come with the times yet. And so a lot of bigger financial companies haven't figured out how they're going to deal with this medium and content. It's very controlled from the top because they're so afraid of getting sued because the SEC doesn't even know how they're going to deal with it yet. Like, what are the guidelines for launching a podcast? And in my opinion, that's what makes it the opportunity right now in 2025 so key, is because while they're scrambling, the pioneers of those industries can really, with the right disclaimers and the right compliance, and some companies have an in-house compliance department. And sometimes those guys are about more scared than anybody because they're like, oh, my whole thing is we don't want lawsuits and we don't want fines. Well, sometimes you can play shit too safe.
Yeah.
And being so safe ends up costing you what could have been a huge spike in your intake of new customers and your basically your intake of more revenue from your existing customers, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say at the end of the day, if I had to leave you with one message, is don't fear the reaper.
Yeah.
Healthy balance of fear is always good because fear protects you.
For sure.
But, being so fearful, and there's ways of doing things that, I'm not saying the gray area, but there's ways of doing things and being is from a compliance standpoint, adding in your disclaimers. And you can consult with other outsourced compliance companies. Well, and they might say, oh, well, the SEC really hasn't really set up these guidelines. But I think if we disclaim and we watch what we say, because from a financial advisor, you can never guarantee any sort of results from any of the advice you're giving out, right? Which is essentially what you're doing. You're trying to educate your existing clients to save more, invest more for retirement, which at the end of the day, the end result of that is your company brings in more money. And hopefully your clients get a good ROI on it. But you can't guarantee those results. You can't even imply that you could, receive those results. Yeah. It's got to be some things that a financial advisor could send a compliance officer running for the hills, like, oh my God, you can't, so there's a lot on advertising when it comes to that. And Follow Up Media is in the know. We know the areas. We know what some of these industries are having to deal with when it comes to compliance. And we're not only listening to stuff and announcements, and laws from the SEC, but we're also best practices. We're in the know. This is what we do.
For sure.
And we will guide and advise you on that. And we will work with your team. If you have a compliance officer, tell them to call me.
Yeah.
Let's talk. If he has a concern, we'll address it and we'll make sure we exclude that from the content or include it, whatever it is. So, we are a partner. Follow Up Media is a full service production marketing agency, and we are spearheading this content creation initiative. We are here to service our clients, exceed expectations, and basically do what all these other companies aren't doing, which is not backing up what they say with the correct amount of knowledge and action. Riley, anything else from you, sir? Even though I rambled on.
No, you're good. And back to what you're saying about the fear factor of getting in here and getting in front of the camera. They lock up. They don't know what to say.
It's a real thing. Public speaking.
Oh, for
one
sure.
of the biggest fears out there.
I feel like what Follow Up Media is sets apart from all the other companies are when they come in, we're laughing, we're having a good time, we're prepared, we're more prepared than them, and we're gonna make sure that
doubt.
But then when they sit in this seat, they have every bit of content ready. They have they're loose. The mics are ready. The cameras are ready.
Good point.
And we're ready to execute.
Right. If it's a client who is running their own show and who is leading the show, we've already sent them our, if they're just launching a podcast or a video series, we've already sent them their first 4 to 8 topics or videos or podcast episodes. And they're topics of what we suggest from a rollout standpoint. What your first one should always be about you, your journey, why you do what you do, how you got to be right here, right now. And about your journey and why you love, what feeds your pockets, but really also what feeds your heart or your soul with why you're working. And when some people are like, I hate working at McDonald's. Well, that probably doesn't feed your soul, and it's probably not your end game. But and you don't have the money to pay us to do this anyway. So no offense if you are working at McDonald's. We love you. I'm loving it. Boo, yeah. Sorry. I know that was bad.
Ice cream. She was
Jonah, do not take that out. But that being said, you've already received your topics.
Yeah.
And a lot of times our clients, when they come in, they admit, we got your topics, but we haven't looked at them. We still didn't even take the time to look at them. But then when they see how in depth, they're like, okay, all right, I see how this is going to roll out, in the first few video episodes or podcasts or whatever you want to call it, or corporate messages or whatever it is. They're like, wow, we can tell you put a lot of time and knowledge in this. That's what we do.
For sure.
If it's scheduling a guest, we will email them, we will call them, we will try to get them on the books and match calendars and either get them in studio or using our remote studio setup. And we will provide them with a outline of what they can expect the questions to be, so they can be prepared to answer and give the best answers from their knowledge and experience of being in that industry, right? Like, so boom, they already know. Our client knows what questions he's asking.
I
They
think
know what questions are being asked. So it's fluid.
Yeah.
If Riley, you are brought in to be the host, you might be brought in to be the host between the client and the guest. So you would provide both with the questions being
Yep.
that are going to be asked, and you would give our client the ability to weigh in on that question, and then the guest would get to weigh in with their expertise.
and already preview the questions that I'm going to ask. I'm not gonna
Everybody's
just do
already
something
no.
crazy.
So we do all that.
Yeah,
So
there are no
we can
surprises.
handle that. We want everybody to be ready to go with time to prep ahead of time. Everybody is going to be in the know, and that's what we want. That's how you get a fluid conversation, and that's all it is a conversation. If it's a conversation between you and I and the people that get to see this content wherever it's being posted, or if it's a conversation between you and I, and Riley is not allowed in this room anymore. Yep, because he's just too young and he needs to go live life a little more.
Yeah.
Get a girlfriend.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we won't go down that road. Hey, thank you so much for checking us out. This is the Follow Up Media podcast on the Foo Media Network. You can join the show. You can hit us up at 770-544-8227, or you could hit the subscribe button. All of our links are in the episode description. You can reach out to Riley through his Instagram because he only uses it for personal use. You won't find any business time on there. And we'll be back with the next episode, and we're going to bring on some great industry experts and guests and clients and just badass stories from people who went from the streets to the suites, from the bottom to the top, you name it.
Oh yeah.
Follow Up Media. Check us out, followupmedia.com.
Yes, sir.